We aren't the first civilization to inhabit Earth. Here's the evidence of the super-archaic wars that were scrubbed from the fossil record. If you look at the timeline of human existence, there is a silence that should terrify you. Anatomically, modern humans have walked this earth for at least 200,000 years. We have had the same brains, the same hands, and the same capacity for innovation for 2,000 centuries. Yet our history books only really begin about 6,000 years ago with Sumer in Egypt. That is a gap of 194,000 years. Are we really expected to believe that for 97% of our existence, we did nothing but bang rocks together and stare at the moon? Or is it possible that we did build, we did conquer, and we did reach the stars, only to burn it all down in a fire so intense it glassified the soil and erased our memory? We call this the Great Amnesia. But scattered across the planet are scars that suggest the story of human civilization is not a straight line of progress, but a cycle of rise and violent collapse. We are looking for the super-archaic wars. When we talk about ancient warfare, we picture spears, chariots, and bronze swords. But there are anomalies in the geological record that simply do not fit that narrative. Anomalies that look suspiciously like the aftermath of thermal ionization, extreme heat that turns rock into liquid and sand into glass. In the Libyan desert, spread over hundreds of square kilometers, lies a vast field of yellow silica glass. This is the purest natural glass in the world. For decades, scientists dismissed it as the result of a meteorite impact. But here is the problem. There is no impact crater, no distinct hole in the ground where a space rock struck. To create that kind of glass, you need temperatures exceeding 3,000 degrees Celsius. You need a burst of thermal radiation that hits the surface without physically penetrating it. In modern times, we have only seen this phenomenon in one specific scenario: the Trinity nuclear test in New Mexico, 1945. The sand there turned into a green glass we call trinitite. The physics are identical. The chemical composition is frighteningly similar. So, we have to ask the uncomfortable question: did a nuclear event occur in North Africa 10,000 years before the invention of the wheel? Travel deeper into the East, and the whispers of these wars stop being geological and start being textual. The Mahabharata is one of the oldest epics known to man. Most historians treat it as a metaphor, a fantasy of gods and demons. But if you read the descriptions of the weapons used, the astras, they sound less like magic and more like technical manuals for ballistic missiles and directed energy weapons. There is a passage that describes a single projectile charged with all the power of the universe. It describes an incandescent column of smoke and flame as bright as 10,000 suns. It talks about how, afterward, the hair and nails of the survivors fell out, pottery broke without cause, and the birds turned white. We know what radiation sickness looks like. We know what a shockwave does. The ancient scribes did not have the vocabulary for radiation poisoning or thermal pulse, so they described what they saw: an invisible curse that killed the land. When J. Robert Oppenheimer, the father of the atomic bomb, witnessed the first detonation, he didn't quote a physics textbook. He quoted the Bhagavad Gita. When asked later if the Alamogordo test was the first atomic bomb ever detonated, he famously replied, yes, in modern times, he knew. He saw the parallel. This brings us to the most unsettling piece of physical evidence: the vitrified forts of Scotland and France. There are dozens of Iron Age forts built with stone walls. But these walls haven't just been set on fire. They have been fused. The stones have melted together into a solid, glassy mass. To do this to granite and basalt requires sustained heat over 1,000 degrees Celsius for long periods. You cannot do this with a wood fire. You cannot do this with a siege. Experiments have tried to replicate this by burning piles of timber against stone walls for days. and they failed to achieve the vitrification seen at sites like Tapo Naf. It implies a weapon or a cataclysm capable of turning a fortress into a kill instantly. Were these the bunkers of a lost age? The last stands of a civilization facing an enemy with the power of the sun? We have to consider the psychological implication of this. If a civilization as advanced, or perhaps differently advanced, as ours existed 20,000 years ago, and they wiped themselves out, the survivors would have been plunged back into the Stone Age. Technology would become magic. Science would become myth. The gods who fought in the sky with their vimanas would become legends to be worshipped by the descendants, who were scavenging for food in the radioactive dust. This is the super-archaic theory. It suggests that the erratic weather patterns, the sudden extinctions of megafauna, and the global layer of black matte sediment found at the Younger Dryas boundary aren't just natural disasters. They are the debris of a planetary conflict. Consider the ruins of Mohenjo-Daro in Pakistan. In the 1920s, archaeologists found skeletons scattered in the streets, holding hands, sprawling as if struck down in a single instant. There was no sign of scavengers, no sign of traditional decay. Some researchers claimed these bones, thousands of years old, were among the most radioactive ever found, on par with those at Hiroshima. While this is controversial and often debated, the vitrification of the pottery and the bricks in the center of the city remains a hard fact. The stones were glazed, melted by a heat that bubbled the clay. This city didn't slowly decline. It was turned off. The resistance to this idea is strong because it breaks our linear view of history. We like to think we are the pinnacle, the first to unlock the atom, the first to fly. But the maps of the ancient sea kings, like the Piri Reis map, show Antarctica without ice coastlines that haven't been seen for 6,000 years. Someone was mapping the world from the air when we were supposedly hunting mammoths. Someone was fighting global wars when we were supposedly living in caves. The 99% of history that is missing isn't empty space. It is a graveyard. And the silence isn't peaceful. It's the silence of a crime scene that has been weathered by time. We are walking on the bones of giants, wondering why we keep inventing weapons that could end us, never realizing we might be reenacting a tragedy that has already happened.